What is sacred geometry?
Sacred geometry is a terminology invented in the 19th century when some people began to try to analyze temples, and they found, for example, relation with the circle, of course, with the square, with the pentagon. They tried to understand what was going on with the geometry of these cathedrals, of the pyramids, of these Hindu temples. And so they called that sacred geometry because it was related to sacred places. The function of the geometry, it's a drawing that regulate the shape of the building. It regulates not only the shape, but it regulates the energy of the place. Okay? So this is a geometry that makes that the place is connected with some rhythms that make the place better for living and healthier.
So living for whom? For man and nature, or only
for both?
Both.
They were aware that they needed energy to power the places. All the temples are built on crossings of water veins that are chosen. Most of the places they choose were chosen before by the ancient people, the people of Neolithic, the people of the dolmens, the people of the menhirs. I should say the people of the menhirs, the people of the dolmens, because it seems the dolmens people invade the menhir people. All the land was recognized by these people. They was surveyed by these people. They knew where the spots were, etc., etc. They knew very well the land, and they built dolmens, they built menhirs, etc. Places with some energy. Okay, when the Romans, for example, began to build, or the Greeks, etc., they took these places, the best places, to build their temples. The earth is always vibrating. You have, for example, earth tides that makes that the earth vibrates, goes up 30 centimeters and down 30 centimeters in a day, okay? And so that makes that everything that is on earth is vibrating. It's the menhir of Pergat. This point here is a violet point. You feel the energy going up. You can here it is. Here. You're going to feel that the energy goes up like that. This is a water that goes like that, runs like that.
Here's water going underneath.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that makes this an energetic.
Yes. It's it's a crossing of water in the middle, okay? And so when you have the crossing of water, you have a vortex of energy, okay? This vortex of energy, there is a difference of potential, electromagnetic difference of potential, okay? That makes that the vortex, like the energy, the electricity goes up and down like that, okay? And so this stone is a granite. It's like with mica and quartz, etc., feldspat, for example. You have a kind of little batteries inside, and so they charge with electricity of the water.
It's like a vortex.
Okay, and makes a vortex, okay? And these two charge, it expels the energy up. And it's stabilizing the place, okay? The energy of the place. So all the rings are expanding all the time because you remember the earth is doing this and this and this and this, okay? And the energy of the water, so it's working like an antenna. So it's making its rings, emitting its stuff, okay? And healing the place.
I don't really feel the energy, but somehow it's a magical place where mostly my mind rides an energetic wave to other perspectives. Because there's more, much more. This stone was put here for a reason, with a function, and it was lifted here with incredible power.
The one thing we need to embrace is that ancient civilizations had a body of knowledge and information that we've long lost. When you start studying the origins of humankind and ancient human history and ancient civilizations, it doesn't take long before you realize that something doesn't quite fit. And then we start finding the ancient ruins of southern Africa. He organized a helicopter flip. We flew around looking at these stone circle ruins. It's only when I saw it from the air and I saw the density of the ruins, how interconnected it is, that it's not just stone circles lying around randomly, that it's stone circles that are connected to each other by these channels that look like pathways, and then mountaintops that are covered in these terraces that are interlaced with stone circles and channels linking the stone circles together. Before I realized, I counted more than 10 million of these stone circle ruins. So we do know that the stone circles generate energy. They are frequency generating devices. And this is why each stone circle is a certain shape. No two stone circles are the same. Each one is completely unique. And they're all connected together because each stone circle generates a huge amount of sound frequencies, magnetic fields, and electromagnetic fields. So the sound frequencies come out of the ground, and the shape of the stone circle is determined by the sound frequency that comes out of the ground. It's called cymatics, the cymatic pattern.
Dat is eigenlijk een apparaatje dat een trilling creëert op de plaat, zeg maar.
Ah ja, dus we creëren eigenlijk het aardoppervlak, maar dan in het heel erg mini.
Ja, zo met het zand erop en het zout. Alright, 916 hertz, daar gaan we.
Wow.
Is a fortified ease. The opposite of dis-ease is created in the holy spots. If people were sensitive, but sensitivity is not a virtue in the West. As a matter of fact, it's to be taken advantage of. It's misunderstood and devalued. Clarity, its opposite is, look at our laws. Intellect and clarity count. They're revered. Those are the masculine traits. Sensitivity and emotionality are second-class citizens. They're considered the irrational. They're equal and important. And one of the reasons that, we've destroyed we've pissed where we eat, on this planet, is because especially the Western mind is completely out of balance and has been for centuries.
And so the internet.
So our laws and everything. Now, if they were sensitive, they would know that our ionization is just nuts. I mean, the oceans, whales are getting the bends because of sonar and all the activity down there. Whales know how to surface without destroying their bones. but because of the electrical activity, of our stupid inventions down there. When you see 56 whales beaching themselves, that's electronic noise. Well, we are being driven mad by cell phones and satellites and everything, and we don't even take that into consideration. So it's like DDT, it's an evil thing, really, in the big picture. I know that there's all kind of art, there's wonderful things that it can do.
Exploring creativity,
right,
exploring musicians from around the world.
You don't need it, for that, and you've got a attention deficit push button people. No, there's more malformation taking place. Even down to bookkeeping, white collar crime potential. It's really just a further extension of our insanity as a species, And at the point of logarithmically no return, which was about 1969, we needed to really go back and use less electricity, but we insist on making push button everything, push button, push button. You got a push button generation. You try to get a thermostat, all you need is to turn it up 1 degree and down 1 degree. 2 movements, bing, bing. You got, are you sure? Are you really sure? You have to push the button about 6 times because it's a tragic little culture. They love it, but in the big picture, in the future, it's going to cost dearly. There's terrible.
And there are not many people who have written a song as good as a Joni Mitchell song. So how did Joni do it? And how did she do it for so many years? Joni seems to have had one consistent thing that kept her going through the years, that prevented her from ever really experiencing writer's block, which was painting. In 1972, Joni spoke about this to pop journalist Penny Valentine after having taken a break from the music industry. Joni said, "I don't feel pressurized by it now, mainly because I intend to express myself in more than one medium. So if I go dry in one, I'll move into something else."
Well, I'm a painter first, and I kind of apply painting principles to music. I think my production skills are visual and not from the staff. One night you'll trip over your tongue, and the words won't come with the same facility, and another night it's just with you. Why? Is it your biorhythm? I'm gonna see the folks I dig. I'll even kiss a sunset peak, California, when I get home.
There are many ways to describe the legendary Joni Mitchell, multi-talented, a musical genius, a singer, songwriter, and poet whose work transcends genres. But Mitchell herself wouldn't use those words because she doesn't want to be defined. She sat down with Jian Ghomeshi of CBC Radio's Q to talk about her process and her art in her own words. Here's Portrait of an Artist.
Joni Mitchell, hello.
Hi.
What a pleasure it is to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us into your home.
Oh, you're welcome.
This place is quite remarkable. It feels like a sanctuary.
Yeah.
Is that what it represents to you?
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
There's artwork on all the walls. Most of it your artwork. And there's self-portraits around as well.
There's some self-portraits around. That's British Columbia. That's where I'm building my house in British Columbia. That's my property. That's my property in British Columbia, and that one too. I only paint things that mean something. That's Saskatchewan at 40 below. This is Ochuna, Nigerian water goddess. I'm a water junkie.
Water was a great source and resource. It could be therapeutical, it could heal, it could cure problems. And these places were very strongly, energetic. And there are very strange phenomena that happens here during the solstices and the equinoxes. Like there's a hole right on top of the sacred well chamber. Can you see it? Mm-hmm. And the moon beams like a light gets inside the well. Or during the solstice, at the beginning of fall, around 11 a.m., you can see your shadow reflected in the water, and in the wall you appear upside down. Because it's the subterranean world that they had to reach, this magical, powerful outer world, which is not, it's invisible, but it's to attract the universal forces.
I actually wanted to start with the painting, and I'm glad we're on it and segue into asking you about it, because whenever I've seen you talk about painting or read what you said, it's quite enchanting.
Mhm.
Does all of your creativity, whether it be painting, writing songs, poetry, come from the same well? In other words, is it the same place in Joni Mitchell that where the visual art comes from, or the music?
Yeah, I do believe there are different languages, you know, and some things don't translate as well from one language to another. So you do, you know, you'd create, oh, you know, like I've got vignettes and things that happened that would make a good short film, but wouldn't make a good song, right? You know, so somewhere down the line, maybe.
So is it about assigning the idea or the inspiration?
Yeah,
This is
yeah, kind of. Well, the painting's pretty straightforward. You know, they're all personal moments, like, you know, I like their memories on the wall, and there's a lot of where I come from in here, or you know, land that I love. The landscapes are all very personal landscapes. Either they're from property that I own, or a good hike near the house.
but if
They're my pets. They're birds that came to me to die.
if painting and music are the two languages, or a couple of different languages, how do you describe the languages? How do you know what does music represent in terms of language to you, and what does painting represent?
Well, I'm a painter first, and I kind of apply painting principles to music. I mean, I think my production skills are visual and not from the staff. I don't think in terms of the, as Princess Margaret called it, the fly shit.
That's what she called it.
That's what she. Do you read? I said no. Oh well, it's just fly shit, anyways. So,
So painting is your first language.
Painting is my first
Your mother
language.
tongue.
My mother tongue. So let's say, yeah.
And music is a learned language. And interestingly, I know you did say this in the documentary Women of Heart and Mind. You said, anytime I make a record, it's followed by a painting period.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good crop rotation, painting to clear the head.
Mm-hmm.
And extracting from that, it feels like you're saying, to a certain extent, correct me if I'm wrong, music is a vocation, painting is liberation.
No, I wouldn't exactly say that. I would say, you know, you do the music, which is very soothing in my, you know, it. I'm choosing chords. Okay, let's start with the poetry. Okay, let's say which came first, the lyric or the music. Usually the music comes first. Okay, and then, you know, I mantra it. I play it over and over, and in that kind of trance, like a lot of it's kind of soothing, even if it's rhythmic. You know, it's never. You know, I write some party songs, but mostly I write late at night and for myself, and so it can be grooving. But you know, and I'm listening to those chords, and I go, okay, you know, this is the here's where the pinnacle thought has to go. Here's where the high note goes, and this is where the main thrust, the most important idea has to go, because this is the pinnacle in the music. You know, so then I'll get the melody, then I'll go over it like the Beatles, like scrambled eggs, you know, maybe get something phonetic, and then something happens in the course of a day. Maybe it all comes in one day, or maybe it's later that week, or in some cases, it's taken as long as 7 years to get to the libretto, you know, to what is this music craving as a story, yes. You know, and then I try, it's a point of craft with me, to marry so that it's theatrical. First of all, they're dramatic pieces. It's frustrated filmmaking. It's very visual, you know, and you're scoring the actress, but the actress, you know, is singing, you know, the lines, but trying to get them as conversational as film, so that you don't really, so that everything is so united and conspiring towards the text.
You're a visual artist. You go from Saskatoon, you attend art school in Calgary for visual arts, right? Mm-hmm. For painting. You were painting. Right. You start also playing in some cafes in Saskatoon musically, then you end up in Toronto. How did music become the career?
Because I got pregnant. I was the only virgin in art school, right? You've been holding on to this precious thing, and I just kind of stupidly let it go.
One weekend in Toronto.
You know, as Jean, my choreographer, says, you were bamfed. No, it was in Banff.
It wasn't Banff.
Right? You were bamfed, and so I got caught out immediately, and So I had to create a smoke screen. The music was not of interest. This is a trick that fate, because I didn't know I had the gift. I hadn't started to write. I was just a folk singer.
And how did music become the smokescreen rather than painting?
Well, because I'm going to quit art school. You know, the pretense to protect my parents was that, you know, I was having trouble with the profs. I was in debate with them all the time. They didn't like the way I dressed. Again, you had to go into a box. You know, to be a painter, you had to wear there was a uniform. It didn't allow for individuality. And they were prejudiced against people with hand-to-eye coordination. We were all abstractionists, and I didn't care for that pocket of painting.
Even in art school, there were too many rules for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was total conformity. And I was an honor student there, and I've talked to other students later that they, even though they were hard on me and always on me, you know, that they used my work as examples. Well, I guess because I became famous that they used it. But I was an honor student, but I was docked because I was no good at mornings, and I would go to Edmonton and sing on the weekends, come home tired, and miss Monday morning. So tardiness, which should not have come into play for an artist, a real artist anyway, was the reason that they were going to dock me, was for absenteeism. I said, well, why? I got my work in. I just didn't get it in by the clock exactly.
I'm curious when you knew that being a creative person, an artist, would be your calling.
Second grade. Yeah. Second grade, I forged my identity as an artist. We had it was the boomers. There was this big population of children. And my house sat between Alexander School and King Street School. I started at Alexander and later went to King Street, but temporarily they opened an Anglican parish hall and took a spill over there. And they brought a little old lady out of retirement. In the second, and she was a nice little old lady, but real reading, writing, arithmetic kind of, very classic, in the box kind of thinker. So she graded us in the second grade in all grades and gave us an average. And she moved the A students into a row and called them bluebirds. And she moved the B students into a row and she called them robins. The C students into a row and she called them wrens. And the flunkies she put in a row and called them crows, right? So I looked at the A students, and they all had their hands clasped on their desks, as I recall, and they were all looking very accomplished and very proud. And in my opinion, there wasn't a smart person in that row. The smart ones were all in the C row. The Bs were trying to be an A. They were trying to be inside the box,
right.
And the flunkies generally were a bit impaired. And the C was average, but the really smart ones were in the C. Winston Churchill was in the C row. Einstein was in the C row. Most individuated theory would be in the C row, So I remember saying, okay, that prize does not appeal to me. I don't want to be a robin, but I don't like the idea of being a third-class citizen, but I drew the best doghouse. We had to draw a doghouse. It had the front and one side showing, and everybody's were too tall and skinny, or their lines went off at the corners, or they didn't have any sense of proportion. So
you got a sense that was you had
right.
something that others didn't
So
have.
I drew the best doghouse. So from then on, I forged my identity as an artist.
So in grade 2 then, I mean, I know you draw the best doghouse, but do you actually internalize that this is something that you want to be doing for the rest of your life?
Not really. I just drew my self-worth from that I was above average at something. I wasn't just average. I drew the best doghouse. So it was a matter, of self-confidence. Well, I'm good at something, I'm just average at all of this stuff. But those people are not imaginative over there, those A people. Mm. And I did have this thought, all they did was she said it and they said it back. From here on in, unless she asks something that nobody knows the answer to, I'm not even going to try. And I didn't. I spaced out all the way through the school system. I drew clothes, I wrote poems, I drew pictures of beatniks and hoods and funny sayings, And thank God, because most of what they taught was wrong anyway. I flunked physics. If they taught quantum physics, I would have been intrigued. Light is intermittent matter. Let's talk about it. where is it if it's solid and it goes away and then it's solid again? Where does it go? That's some interesting stuff.
You see yourself as an outsider at that time as well, right? You see yourself as different from.
Oh yeah. People tell me I'm from Mars all the time. No, I'm from Mars. How many times have I been told that? I'm not a herd animal. Yeah, so I am outside. I'm born the day of the discoverer, the week of death. So I'm cursed by astrology to be deeper than the average person and also have the need to be original, to plant the flag where no one else has been. So I'm going to listen to traditions which satisfy everybody and sell like hotcakes and go, that ain't shit. You know, it's been done and done and done.
So how does it feel like when that person becomes, as you did by the early 70s, this massive star? Having said all you did about fame,
I retreated into the BC wilderness.
Do you know that feeling? When you come to a place you didn't know, don't understand, and no one explains where you are. But deep inside, your primal instinct tells you that we once were connected to a place as such. Because somewhere along the line, we simply evolved away from it. By ignorance, arrogance, or perhaps deliberately obscured. We became modern people, right? So smart that we've become stupid again. Not understanding the roots and principles of where we come from anymore. Symbols and structures with perhaps great meanings and connections, but in our present day existence, nothing more than a hollow space. Yes, nowadays we certainly build structures much bigger and more comfortable than where I am at the moment. But imagine building this thousands of years ago, in the middle of a mountain. It just makes me curious who we once were and why we're not anymore.
Joni Mitchell. She didn't come out to Woodstock, but she wrote the song about it from what she gleaned from other people. And yet, to her credit, it was the song.
By the time we got to Woodstock, we were 500,000 strong, and everywhere there was song and celebration. And I dreamed I saw the bombers riding shotgun in the sky, and they were turning in to butterflies of our nation.
I was just trying to understand myself and my world. I used the writing process as a method of understanding, getting closer and closer to the essence. My 20s were full of intense, painful self-discovery. Some truth that I discovered along the way, wherever I could take it from my own personal travail to the universal. Anything good that helped me, I would try to slot into the song to give it some nutrition, so it would transcend self-pity.
I was always very cautious about giving Joan enough room to write. There was no schedule. It was just me trying to recognize when Joni was going into that void, when I say something and she wasn't listening. And she wrote many, many, many songs while we were together. She wrote half of Blue, Ladies of the Canyon. It was a shitty morning, late winter, chilly, rainy, miserable, foggy. I'd taken Joni to breakfast at Art's Deli on Ventura Boulevard, quite close to Laurel Canyon. We were walking after breakfast and we passed an antique store. And was looking in the window. Joan saw this small vase that she wanted to buy. It was about 8 or 9 inches high, some hand-painted flowers around one edge. So she bought it. We drive to her house, go through the front door, and I said, "Hey, John, why don't I light a fire and you put some flowers in that vase that you bought today?" It's that simple. Joni went out to find some winter flowers to put in this vase that she just bought. That means she wasn't at a piano, but that means that I was.
I'll light the fire. You place the flowers in the vase that you bought today. Staring at the fire for hours and hours while I listen to you play your love songs all night long on me.
People would say when me and Joan walked into a room, it lit up the room. We brought out the best in each other.
Come to me now, to me rest your head.
In the Laurel Canyon scene, we were at the very center of this beautiful bubble of creativity and friendship and sunshine and sex and drugs and music.
Our house is a very, very, very fine house with 2 cats in the yard. Life used to be so hard. Now everything is easy 'cause of you. But it don't snow here, stays pretty green. I'm gonna make a lot of money, then I'm gonna quit this crazy scene. I wish I had a river I could skate away on.
You've been called a recluse. Does it bother you when people consider you a recluse?
No, people always get everything wrong. When somebody gets something right, I'm always delighted, you know. As David said, Joan, you're the only person I know, you know, who doesn't want to be famous. I really didn't. I wrote a poem about
Which
it.
David Crosby?
Geffen.
Geffen.
You know, I thought fame was going to be a horrible experience, which until you get used to it, it is. You know, you just have to deal with an incredible amount of stupidity because this place is mentally ill with celebrity. At 16, this will give you an idea. I'm not a kid that played air guitar in the bedroom and go, "Oh, I'm going to be rich and famous," and all of that.
Right.
I felt sorry for stars. You know, Sandra Dee was all over the local magazines with her mascara running down. The paparazzi were on them. She was breaking up with her husband. It was misery. I thought, oh, the poor woman. And so I wrote this poem called The Fishbowl about Hollywood before I ever was here. You know, the fishbowl is a world reverse where fishermen with hooks that dangle from the bottom up reel down their catch without a fight on gilded bait. Pike, pickerel, bass, the common fish ogle through distorting glass. See only glitter, glamour, gaiety. Fog up the bowl with lusty breath. Lunge towards the bait and miss and weep for fortunes lost. Envy the goldfish? Why? His bubbles breaking round the rim while silly fishes faint for him and say, "Oh my God, I think he winked at me." So you see.
When did you write that?
When I was 16. Wow. So before I went to art school, before I got into this game, you know, so I'm not entering the game in a normal way.
So what becomes the turning point where this becomes not just a career, but a massively successful one?
I had no career.
So when does the career?
And I had no ambition to be a musician because there was no reason. I mean, the bottom was falling out of folk music. My only thing was, this is the last time I'm ever going to be able with a grade 12 education, get enough money in the bank, you know, make hay while the sun shines.
Joni, you worked really hard in the late 60s and early 70s to cultivate the career that you did.
I liked writing. I liked composing. I like creating. I love the creative process.
De structuur van de piramide, wat doet dat dan?
Nou, wat heel belangrijk is voor de piramide is de hoek. De graden, zeg maar. Dus het gaat erom dat het zo strak mogelijk is. Het is 51,5 graden. En daarom is het ook belangrijk dat die waterpas staat. En als die een beetje anders staat, zijn die graden ook anders.
Maar wat geeft hier dan energie? Waar zit die energie dan?
Kosmische energie is de energie die om ons heen is. Hè? Waar de planten ook van groeien. Planten groeien niet alleen van voeding. Die hebben ook energie nodig. Zonne-energie, kosmische energie. Die energie hangt om ons heen, overal. En wat die piramide doet, die bundelt die energie. Er zijn wel testen gedaan dat je boven die piramide als het ware een trechter zit, hoe die dat aantrekt.
Maar dat is puur alleen de vorm?
De vorm doet dat. Dus net zoals een vergrootglas, zonne-energie bundelt tot een brandpunt, doet hij dat ook. Kosmische energie is een helende energie. Dus in wezen herstelt hij het dan. Hij komt de energie komt weer vrij uit de grond. Je kunt het ook zien, om de piramide heen komt soms ook weer planten die je jaren niet gezien hebt. Dus oude rassen, oude soorten komen ineens weer op. De zaad kan schijnbaar heel lang stil liggen. Dat is heel bijzonder, ja.
Heeft het ook op de mens een therapeutische werking?
Ja, het heeft ook de mens ook een therapeutische werking. Het is een hele werking, zeg maar. Hij brengt je terug, ik zeg wel, hij brengt je terug naar je blauwdruk. Zo je in wezen bedoeld bent. We lopen in ons leven van alles op, fysiek en emotioneel, waar we niet altijd helemaal oplossen. En die dingen blijven wat hangen en die beginnen met de tijd beginnen ze te zeuren tot je ergens een klacht krijgt. Maar hij brengt je terug. Dus hij ruimt dingen op, zeg maar.
De wetenschap die grafieke statistieken presenteert met 0 en 1. En dat zijn feiten waarop wij zeg maar geloven of niet geloven.
Ja.
Zo'n energie van de piramide is natuurlijk heel moeilijk te vangen in die 0 en 1. Dus, en hoe vertaal je dat naar mensen?
En, 0 en 1 en voelen.
Ja.
Maar we zijn te veel op een 0 en 1. En de rest die zijn we een beetje vergeten. En misschien is er daarom wel zoveel pijn en gedoe in de wereld. Ja, dat kan. Hoe je dat vertaalt is voelen. Ja, dat zijn we een beetje vergeten de laatste tijd. Open-minded erin gaan zitten en even je hoofd even uitdoen als het lukt. En dan kun je voelen wat het met je doet. Maar dat zijn we een beetje afgeleerd, zeg maar. Ik denk dat we alles in principe wel weten. Maar dat we dat zijn vergeten, doordat we allemaal zo snel willen en moeten. Er gebeurt heel veel in de wereld. Er zijn vervelende dingen bij, maar daardoor ontstaan er ook heel veel mooie dingen. De mensen worden bewuster en zeggen dingen van, er is meer. Of ze gaan zoeken, omdat ze niet op hun gemak voelen. En dan, dat is het voordeel van een crisis. Daarna ontstaan vaak hele mooie dingen. Omdat mensen weer op pad gaan. Als alles goed is en het is mooi weer, dan is alles zo het is. En het blijft ook zo het is. En als je even pijn hebt, dan denk je, nou, misschien is er een oplossing.
Wat is nou iets waarvan je zelf ook weer overtuigd raakte van de werking van een piramide, van een van de piramides die je hebt geplaatst?
Dat was van een boer. Die heeft heel goed contact met zijn koeien. En een van zijn koeien, die was een beetje, hij zei, zeg maar, gek in de kop. Hij snapte er niks van. Ik denk, kan ik de veearts wel bellen? Maar dan komt er een spuitje in, kijk, maar weet niet melken. Dus ik denk, ik laat hem even bij de piramide in het kampje. En dan laat, die koe bij de piramide in het kampje. En hij doet het hek achter die koe dicht. En die koe loopt loodrecht naar de piramide toe. Gaat erin liggen. Ja, bijzonder. Gaat erin liggen en heeft er een halve dag in gelegen. Volgende dag ging je eten. Ging je weer liggen. Ging je weer nog een keer eten. Ging je weer in de piramide liggen. Het heeft 2 dagen geduurd. Dag 3 stond hij weer voor het hek te roepen. Van jongens, ik ben klaar. En de boer kon gewoon weer melken en deed gewoon weer aan de koeien mee.
Echt waar?
Ja, heel bijzonder. Ja.
Mooi.
Ja. Ja, een koe die denkt niet, hè? Die doet gewoon, die voelt, zeg maar. Die heeft op een of andere manier gedacht, ik ga in de piramide liggen. Ja, voor die boer was dat gewoon een bevestiging van wat hij altijd al dacht.
Its construction with specific aimings and dimensions have mysterious and miraculous effects on the material kept inside them.
The findings of such studies include rapid growth of plants, faster healing of bruises and burns, longer preservation of milk, vitalization, and better relaxation in human subjects.
There are three options. I believe, I don't, or simply try it myself. So I built a pyramid. And turned it into a garden greenhouse. With a tunnel, of course. But all big things can be explored in the very small. And whether the pyramid works or not, the crops here are not growing, but have exploded into giants in 20 days. Man, you proclaimed we could harvest the energy around us for the benefit of the crops with copper. So what exactly are we harvesting in the atmosphere?
That beautiful energy that's all around us, the ether, the chi, the prana, the life force energy, orgone, whichever word you would like to call it. There's all types of energy around us. And this was shown back in the 1900s too in Germany, when they used to send balloons up into the air to gather atmospheric energy. They would hang a little wire down, from the balloon, and they would collect that atmospheric energy. The higher you go up, the more energy that you can see. So when you're placing these antennas into your garden, such as a piece of wood and a piece of copper, you're creating coils around that piece of wood, and those coils are harvesting or harnessing the energy that's all around us, Mother Earth's energy. Mother Earth sends out vibrations every single second, right? And what we're doing is we're picking up on those vibrations so that we can elevate our gardens, our plant life, our pollinators, our bees, our birds, and the energy that's all around us. One of the biggest things that I've noticed since people started doing electroculture is they start to have all different types of pollinators come around, all different types of birds, all different types of bees.
Why are we humans need to reconnect the garden with these frequencies? Why nature is not achieving this organically?
What's happening is we're losing a lot of that energy because of all of these towers, the cell phone towers, all of this man-made frequency, right? And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to elevate our gardens and bring back the Earth's frequency and help increase that. Technology, like the US Navy, right? They use, for example, the Schumann resonance of 7.83 hertz to communicate all across the world, right? So what we're doing is with electric culture is we're tapping into that same Schumann resonance, which is going all around the world, and we're using it to help elevate our garden. A lot of this was lost with the resets of World War I and World War II. You know, a lot of information was lost related to these types of ways because it made us more dependent on the chemical farming instead of using the energy from the earth.
Having enough food for the almost 8 billion people in the world is quite a challenge already. Is it realistic to adequately meet world food demand with electroculture?
1940s Victor Schauberger and all of his work, right? He presented all of this to the Bulgarian government at the time, right? He presented copper tools, he presented copper plows, he presented all types of things derived from copper. He even showed how you can vortex water to structure it, you know, using copper. He showed all of this, and this was all shown. And he determined that when you use copper in the soil, you'd start yielding 2 to 3 times more food. You know, you wouldn't need as much water, right? So your plants don't need as much water. They'll start growing faster. And he noticed like potatoes were 2-3 times the size. He noticed tomatoes were 2-3 times the size. All these different foods were 2-3 times the size. You know, so when it comes to abundance, if we just tap into the energy, we could have abundance. But if we use all these chemicals, which are blocking up the energy and blocking up the earth and really destroying the earth, right? And destroying our health, right? Because that's what these chemicals are doing. They're destroying our health too. We eat them and then we're poisoned and have health issues as well. So we can't have abundance if we're poisoning ourselves. You know, it doesn't make any sense, and the land and the insects and all of those things. But Victor Schauberger presented all of this, and during the 1940s, the Bulgarian government actually shot it down because the person in charge at that time was basically getting a kickback from the fertilizer companies. And what they did was they put out a broadcast on the news and on the radio saying that if you use copper tools instead of iron, because iron leads to rust and decay, you would yield too much food and not make enough money. And the farmers at that time were, you know, like, I don't want to be a part of that. So when it comes to abundance, 1940s, right, just before World War II, we saw all of the abundance that was there. And he was showing it. He was showing it with so many different people. He would go and give them gardening tools and go, try this out. You'll see what happens. And he recorded so much abundance, but it was all pretty much moved away. And then, like I said, as we became more on the chemical farming and moving more towards that, we moved away from that energetic principle. But a lot of this information was removed and taken away. And as that information was taken away, and the books were also removed as well, right, relating to these topics, as all of that was removed, we lost this idea for abundance, and we started to connect to basically spraying chemicals all over our plants. And as we became that way, we also became dependent on the chemical companies. And now those same chemical companies are gene altering the plants so that they can own the patents to the seeds, so that they can keep making money off of something that is completely free, which is nature. If people are using this beautiful energy, they could have a ton of food and then they could share it with their friends and family. Right now, I have a lot of people who message me and tell me, I'm giving my food out to X, Y, and Z because I have so much. They have to come over and take it.
What seems to be the trend is destroying, destroy the individual, destroy the identity, destroy the gender, destroy the children, destroy the nature. And it can be something as simple as copper wire wrapped around a stick, which wakes a person up to the power that they have to create beauty and life.
Call it naive, contrarian, or even stupid. But the quieter the story, the more it awakens something in me to do just that. And as far as the abundance of food is concerned, I'm pretty well on my way.
There's a woman who can self-induce psychedelic visions on command. No drugs needed, no formal meditation training. Within minutes, she can switch her brain into an altered state characterized by geometric lattices, body dissolution, and a profound sense of unity. And scientists just watched it happen in real time. A recent case study published in Neuroimage mapped the brain of a woman who can voluntarily enter a visionary trance state, and she did it consistently across 20 separate fMRI sessions. What made the scans remarkable was that during the trance, her visual cortex decoupled from her sensory input entirely, which is why vivid internal imagery became dominant. Her frontoparietal and salience networks increased connectivity with regions involved in self-referential processing. Brain activity shifted towards lower entropy and higher complexity, a similar pattern to that seen after psilocybin sessions, but without a single molecule of serotogenic agonism involved. This is significant because if the transcendental state were purely a pharmacological event, i.e. drug-induced, then you wouldn't be able to replicate it through intention. The fact that she can means these states are latent features of the brain's network architecture. Psychedelics may just be one way to unlock a door that the brain already has. The question this leaves open is whether voluntary access to these states can be learned more broadly. Holotropic breathing has suggested yes for decades, and this study adds another data point. This woman seems to have found the key to open her doors of perception without the use of a psychedelic substance. Does that mean we can all find ours too?
The chamber has a stone stool, like a little seat. They call it a meditation chair, used by, young people passing from childhood to adulthood, where they had to sleep and stay in contact with the soul of their powerful ancestors inside the tomb of the giants. This is even told by the ancient Greeks. It was called the incubation rite. So sleeping, in contact with the soul of the ancestors. The entrance is facing the east side, so the rising of the sun, which means the rebirth. So they were built according to astronomic rules that these people had the knowledge of. The sacred, energetic place is not just tombs.
So animism is more something that, with your background, you need to understand and learn. And I, with my background, needs to understand how to explain even. Because the saying that maybe a fish doesn't understand water. Why? Because it's the medium the fish is living there. We have a distance to water. We are not like actual water beings, even though we contain 80% of water or something. But the fish, does it understand water? You ask a Sami, what is animism? It's kind of the same. What are you? And I had to understand. That's why I went to university to study psychology, to get the Western language, the words, and also rhetorics and philosophy, because there I found the directions, which is so important in the Sami cosmology, and the elements. It's there. So that is a proof to me that the Western world, Greek world, Greece and Turkey and Italy, and where this philosophy started, comes from shamanism. 100%. We have the same understanding, but we are still with it. And the Greek philosophers, early ones, is 500 before Christ, the early ones. So those we can study because it's preserved in language and in writing. So we can understand that. Go back to those and Empedocles, whatever the names, and look. There's a lot of shamanism there to learn in a Western language, even. Mm-hmm. So to explain animism is that, well, everything is in relationship with everything. Everything has agency, not only you and me, or a dog, everything. So, you can have a conversation with everything. That is how we learn. This is how we understood that Amanita is medicine, for example. But we have no drugs up here in the tradition, other than booze from the colonizers, as everywhere. But in the tradition, no. We use sound because the Arctic is so quiet because of the winter. It's super quiet. That is also why Sami jewelry looks like this. No, we have this sound, very small sounds that becomes quite loud in the winter, for example. So we don't need to be knocked out by some drugs. We use sound. We use a sound to travel, and to go into a trance mode. The heartbeat is very trance-inducing. So that is what we usually traditionally do. And I don't really eat the amanitas. I have a conversation. I travel with them. So I pick it, I dry it. Wintertime, I have it in ceremonies as a cell phone, as a mobile phone. So I can call up the mycelium, which is interconnected under the surface with exactly everything. So I can get good information from the place. And the Amanita can also show me what is needed. So the shamanistic healing is also to start to understand what everything is about, finding balance. That is important. It's nothing else. So this Amanita is to, when you're out of your balance, you want to try Amanita maybe as ingested in order to, or hope to find your balance again. It's not that you're going to, let's say, evolve that much. That will happen anyways when you're in balance. So the Western idea of gaining stuff and perform and the next level, all of this, the internet is full, of these classes and God knows everything. I said, oof, I'm getting exhausted just to see them, No, it's to find your balance. Then the evolution will make the process, trust the process. When you're back into a balance, maybe you're the same old you, but you're not some of the Bitcoin whatever queens, but you're back on your feet again and you're finding balance. Okay, then you inhale, relax, trust the process. Evolution is the planet is all about evolution. The upgrade will come. Don't chase it. Just keep an eye out. I can start to see it with my special eyes. And what is the special eyes? I can't really explain it. I also asked my godfather, what is the special eyes? Because he always talked about, then you look with your special eyes. But what is exactly the special eyes? Your special eyes. It's an inner eye ability. It's very hard to describe. You just need to exercise and try, and all of a sudden you find them. You find your special eyes, which is kind of, for me, those eyes are like behind me, kind of deep into my head. That is why I have them. And I go there to see. I go back in order to see, forward. Exactly. And when I see the entity, I need to have a conversation, and then you need to be able to have two thoughts going on, as if an electric something, and they show they are alive. So, and here you can start to have this inner conversation. And maybe your body isn't really used to receiving that much and sending the information to your brain, basically, because we sense with the whole being, not only with the body but with the etheric body as well. So that might need a little bit of practice before, if you're not used to, you as a collective, used to relate like this with other beings, more than human beings, like the Amanita, or with the stones, or with a tree, or with a place that has a specific energy attached to it, like a power place. So this is, you don't need to eat everything, actually. Eat less and be more, I would say. And that is a balance that one can look for.
Yeah.
And listen to with the whole body before maybe eating it. That is also something. Or it's also interesting to check in and see what it does with you, and maybe also relate to a living Amanita if possible, if there's anything growing. Or you can connect with the image of the Amanita in a nature, kind of a fantasy nature, and travel in your mind. It works. If you sit in a apartment on the 11th floor or something and feel a little bit disconnected from nature, you go into your humans, and fantasy is really a strong thing. That is how we invite and invent new things. And we can time travel, go back in history, go forward, be here and now. Fantasy is amazing. So, and mushrooms and fantasy is really connected as we
Nou, was ist überhaupt die Aufgabe der Mensch?
Die Erde in ihrer Reinheit zu erhalten. Die Erde von alleine braucht es nicht, aber wir Menschen sind sehr oft so aktiv, dass wir gegen diese Reinheit bewusst oder unbewusst vorgehen. Die Aufgabe der Schamane ist, in der ursprünglichen Schwingung die Erde zu halten, weil die Erde braucht uns, so genau wie wir sie brauchen. Das ist ein Lebewesen, die mit uns in ständigen Austausch, wie Mutter und Kinder. Ja. Ich weiß, es ist vor allem in den Medien wird extrem jetzt diese Zeit zu einer besonderen Zeit erklärt. Daraus wird fast ein eigenes Geschäft gemacht. Sprung der Erde, Übergang, die neue Erde, Bewegung. Und für mein Gefühl, ich kann nicht sagen, dass ich allwissend bin, aber ich kann spüren, was für mich fühlt sich das wie künstliche Konzept draufgesetzt. Also nicht, dass ich den Menschen diese Hoffnung auf etwas ganz Starkes, was passieren darf im Leben, damit wegnehmen möchte. Nur die suchen nicht richtig da, weil das alles passiert in uns innen. Und wenn wir im Inneren etwas verändern, dann verändert sich sofort unsere Realität. Und ja, jetzt, wo wir uns befinden, ist die Chance, dass viele Menschen fast zur gleichen oder zu sehr ähnlich ranliegende Zeit in sich bereit sind, etwas zu verändern. So war vielleicht seit langem nicht mehr die Konstellation auf dieser Erde. Es waren immer so einige Lichtträger, die das kultiviert haben, eben Schamanen auch dazugehörend. Und jeder, der sich auf dem Weg begeben konnte, konnte das in sich aktivieren. Ich habe das Gefühl, dass jetzt ist die Chance, dass sehr viele Menschen fast gleichzeitig, also ich spreche von vielleicht Zeitspanne von 10 Jahren und wenn sich einer von uns in seinem Inneren diese Veränderung anleitet, zu der er steht, zu der er wirklich was sein wahres Selbst bedeutet, dann macht das Boom draußen. Und wenn das mehrere Menschen machen, ich nenne das Springen, man springt sozusagen in sich selbst hinein. Und was für mich weniger war, ist, die Konzepte im Außen zu suchen, sich irgendwelchen Bewegungen anzuschließen. Oder was ich je höre, in die neue Erde einen Sprung machen. Das klingt so wie aus den Wurzeln herauszugehen. Ein Baum braucht keine neue Erde, der ist mit Wurzeln, er hält die Erde. Und mein Gefühl sagt mir auch, dass die sogenannte neue Erde, das ist unsere alte Erde, die wir mit so vielen Schichten bedeckt haben mit so vielen Mustern, die Fallengedanken bildeten, wo wir uns voll verloren haben. Und eigentlicher Weg ist wieder springen in die Mitte hinein, sozusagen in das tiefste Innere. Ja.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.
It is all about coming home. We were distracted from home for so long. And this story is just a reminder of who we are, and if we open ourselves, ancient wisdom will resurface again. We are peaceful human beings from flesh and blood, living on and with a spectacular planet, and are giving us all the energy we need if we understand our origin, our local community, and our responsibility. Ignoring the big, embracing the small. Imagine, if we all embrace the small, how big our impact will be.
Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you know?
So yes, the fertilizer companies can knock on my door because the copper wire keeps the Colorado beetle out. While just 50 meters away, the potato field without copper wire is a beetle's paradise.
The reason plants start to have illness, right? They start to get like pests and bugs and things like that, is because the bugs and the pests are starting to come in to try to clean up the plant, right? If the plant emits infrared and UV frequencies out, and these bugs start coming, because the bugs can see these frequencies that are coming from the plant, which is on its way out, right? So what copper starts to do is it starts to restore that energetic principle, and that plant can be stronger and more resilient.
That's what I mean.
That's the beginning of the concept, because it's vibrating. Everything vibrates at a frequency, and if you know that frequency, you can control things.
Stars when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of a pine, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel.
Om een piramide heen komt soms ook weer planten die je jaren niet gezien hebt. Oude rassen, oude soorten komen ineens weer op. De zaad kan schijnbaar heel lang stil liggen.
It's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. Oh, yes, I'm feeling good.
The only thing I'm worried about now is who is going to eat all this?
Wir leben in einer turbulenten Zeit, wo ich mehr und mehr die Fragen gestellt habe, was ist eigentlich Menschheit? Wie sind wir, wo kommen wir her, was ist unser Ziel, wie sieht unsere gemeinsame Horizont aus? Und eine Zeit der Krise gibt uns die Möglichkeit, uns die Fragen zu stellen, mal zurückzuschauen. Und dann stellst du einfach fest, dass wir die Verbindung zu diesen Antworten verloren haben. Weil die können wir nur in einem höheren Bewusstsein finden. Das Universum hat die Antworten, aber wir haben uns schwächen und ablenken lassen durch falsche Versprechen und Erzählungen. Dazu haben wir uns der Angst und die Verlockung falscher Sicherheit selber auch zugelassen, dass wir uns spalten lassen. Aber wie gesagt, eine Krise ist auch immer eine Zeit, wenn wir für die Wahl gestellt werden. Dass wir uns entscheiden können, unseren eigenen Weg zu wählen. Um unsere Kultur, Unabhängigkeit zu bewahren auf dem Weg nach die Antworten. Und ich glaube, der Weg dahin fängt ganz einfach an. Ich sitze hier mit 20 Leuten an einem Tisch und ich kann 1000 Gründen argumentieren, was uns trennen kann. Und ich glaube, das ist auch wichtig zu wissen. Aber ich glaube, mehr wichtiger zu wissen, was uns verbinden kann. Und das ist heute den Tisch hier, mit Essen aus eigenem Garten. Solange wir hier an dem Tisch sitzen bleiben, ist die Chance groß, dass wir mit unserer Gruppe das Menschheit nicht verlieren. Und von dort aus die Kräfte und Energie zurückgewinnen, die durch den Zahn der Zeit einfach verloren gegangen sind.